He's in stallion mode, and that's the mode you don't want to deal with him in.
Yeah, I know.
Because that'll be the most extreme version of him.
So the issue that we had is when he comes in, he just loses it. So the first night he came up and he kind of did his I don't want to be caught thing, but it took like under a minute. We brought him in and everything was fine. The next day he came in with the herd and he just would not sit still at all. Then he ended up rushing one horse in, and that horse got injured. Then he was the last one, and we just kept trying to catch him, and then he finally decided to just, full force. Almost, went right by my head. The owners are very elderly, and that's why he's here, because they just can't really deal with him anymore. Same with his brother from another mother.
So he's retired, but he needs to get better and make it easier for your guys' staff doing chores and just safer to be around in general.
Safer to handle and be around. I don't think he was handled a whole lot to begin with.
Yeah.
And he was a stud the whole time, although they never used him.
And then was he castrated recently?
In June.
Oh, that's pretty recent.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well, should we head out there and see?
Yeah.
Is there a chance that running him up with the herd got him bothered, that walking out and trying to catch him out there wouldn't go better before the herd comes running up?
We can try it. Do you think that's worth a shot, or?
Depending on how hard he is to catch, because that's a bigger space, much bigger space.
Yeah.
But if he's not familiar, like if you're taking an older horse that was used to one routine and now we're changing and he's learning a new routine, that action of a herd coming up could be a lot of energy for a horse that's not used to that.
Yeah.
Once he gets used to it, it won't be a big deal. But if that is new to him, that could have spiked his adrenaline and got him kind of bothered. And so now you're dealing with him bothered versus dealing with him calm.
We could
As an experiment, let's try to halter him out there just to see. And then if it works, I'll actually have you turn him loose. And then we'll run him up and see if it changes.
Okay.
Because I know you'd rather run him up, right?
Yeah, because that's what we do. So we want him to get used to what we do.
So I'm looking at it as kind of two separate issues. One issue is just leading him. He probably needs a little bit better ground manners because he hasn't been handled much.
Right.
And then the second thing is the system for catching them and bringing them in and out. Let's try catching them in there now, and we'll just watch. And if he's hard to catch, then we'll run him in.
Okay.
I can see why the smaller pen would be helpful.
Yeah. So should we just run him up?
Yeah. So we'll go wait up there.
Okay. Yeah.
Luckily, he seems fairly settled now. Like, when he got to the other horses, he dropped to a walk. But if you looked at how they all came out, like they knew the system.
Yeah.
They walked with their heads down. They were like, okay, we're going to the barn. And he was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And his head is up and he's motoring. And then when he got to the herd, he settled.
Okay.
So he was on the edge of, if he hadn't figured out around that gate, he was on the edge of losing it.
Yeah.
But he recovered.
Yeah.
So by the time he got here, he's like, oh, okay. So I actually don't think you need to give him a very long time to settle in here before you guys start catching, however you normally catch them.
Okay. It's kind of whoever, comes
easiest
up
to catch first.
Is,
For sure.
who we bring in. So
yeah. So I think just start catching them.
Okay.
When it gets down to the last horse, because he's difficult, I would not take away the last horse until he's caught too.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, stop. Come on.
Hey, would you guys like to see more detailed training videos that show you step-by-step how to train your horse and work through common issues? We have a huge video library on my Patreon page, as well as dropping new videos every week. You can also send me a message on there and get questions answered about your horse. You can even send videos for me to coach. So it's a really great value at just $10 a month. Next January, it's gonna go up to $20 a month for all that. So if you wanna get in now for $10, make sure you get signed up, and I'll look forward to seeing you on there. I think you could see he's more settled now.
Yes.
And I would try to catch him early there. And now once he gets the halter on, now he gets a treat. And so I would practice that same routine in the stall. Put a halter on and give him a treat. And to be honest, if you got in the habit of like, when they're in their stall and you're walking by them, walk in there, halter them, and give them a treat, and they start associating getting haltered with getting a treat. The secret is don't give them the treat just by walking in until the halter's on. Yeah. And then also with him, you saw if I turn my belly button and my eyes away from him and I approach him a little more sideways, it's less pressure. So if I walk up to you like this,
yeah, I'm gonna.
You feel how that's a lot of pressure. And literally, if I just go like this, and I'm standing next to you, do you feel how that's less pressure than if I go like this? Yeah. So when you're catching them, or if you have a hard to, this goes for any horse, if you just point I'm very aware of where I point my eyeballs and belly button because it's more pressure. So if I turn into the side, and then another little strategy is try not to step closer and reach for them at the same time. Pick one or the other. Either get a little closer and then go here.
Reach. Okay.
Yeah, and then go for it. But I also think the order at which you halter him will matter because there was a herd of 4 here, I think.
Yeah.
And we took 1 away, and he was at the gate going, where is he? Where is he? Where is he? And that is also what tells me he's very concerned about herd dynamics. He also whinnied to a horse that whinnied in the barn while he was in a pasture full of horses. Okay. And again, so what does that tell us? That tells us that he's thinking about herd dynamics. Okay. He's figuring out his place in the pecking order and the herd. And I think that's where most of your troubles came from, is he was in a right brain state of mind. He was an older horse that hadn't been handled that much. And you just kind of, perfect storm. Yeah. It was all those things combined. Now I would like to, I would like to lead him into the arena now and work with him just a little bit on the ground. And we didn't say this on camera, but he's an older horse who hasn't done a lot. Now I'll get him into the arena and we'll take a look at any leading things, some ground matter stuff, see if we can help that.
Perfect.
Does that sound good?
Awesome. Yes, thank you.
So the big issue with him right now is he's completely not paying attention to me. He's thinking about the herd. And so my number one objective right now is not to teach him ground manners. My goal is to get him connected with me. And so the way I'm gonna do that is by, when he gets walking away, I'm gonna yield his hindquarters until he looks at me out of his opposite eye right there. And so I'm gonna accomplish hopefully 2 things. Every time I ask him to yield his hindquarters, that should help him decompress and settle, like just settle a little bit. See there, his head coming down, and see now there he looked away. The second thing that it should help is by yielding the hindquarters, I'm getting him safer, hind feet going away from us, not kicking at us, but I'm bringing his nose to me indirectly. If I pull the halter and make him look at me, that doesn't, he won't feel like he chose that decision. But if I put pressure over here, eventually he's going to catch on that every time he looks away from me, I tap his hindquarters, he's going to want to keep 2 eyes on me, because he's running into pressure every time he does it. See, right? So he thought about it there a little bit. Okay? And then I'm using the halter just to make sure I get that correct position. Do you see that?
Yeah.
And then I'll just kind of go for a walk. And every time I feel like he gets really distracted, I'll just do that little hindquarter yield. He does feel more comfortable with me on his left side. So when I come over here, what I should do first is pat him. Can you see how he's defensive over here?
Yeah.
So all this backing up, he's trying to block me. He just doesn't have that much experience with people on his right side. So I have to be a little bit careful to not tap him too much with a stick on this side. On the left side, he just doesn't care about me being there. On the right side, he's a little concerned about me being there, and he keeps wanting to put me in 2 eyes where he can see me. The good news is he's a good boy. He wants to be good. So and you kind of understood that right away. You're like, I don't think he's trying to be bad. He just got bothered. See him blocking me? There. Do you see how his energy is just a little softer than when we first came in? He's still looking around. Like his attention span is kind of short. But his energy is a little softer. He's not calling out. His movements are slower.
Yeah.
He's getting a little bit better about me coming over here and petting him. And so that's all the change I was looking for. So if you just take literally a couple of minutes when you first halter him, taking him from point A to point B, of basically asking him to check in with you, I think it'll make a big difference. Like, I don't think this will take much at all. And for me, if he whinnies out, that's like a first cue that I'm going to go ahead and ask him to move the hindquarters, because if he's whinnying out, he's definitely thinking about the other horses, not me. And I wouldn't always have to have the stick with me. You could just use the end of the lead rope.
Okay.
You know, but I would, if he looks away, I would tap him, you know, with something. I wouldn't just walk back there.
Okay. Where are you going?
So just walk opposite of wherever he goes.
Okay.
Yep. Tap him in the butt there. Yep. Good. Now, and then don't look at him when you do that. There. See him face you?
Yeah.
Good. There is one more game that I play with horses that don't have good ground manners, because he's a little bit too willing to crowd into a human space. If I was working with him, I would just do the hindquarter yield for a while, and every time he does that, I would circle around to the hindquarters.
Okay.
So just go ahead and do that right now. And let me show you the other game that I would add to a horse that is kind of walking through a human space. I call this exercise owning space. So the idea is I'm just going to walk over here and stop, and I'm going to wave the stick and ask him to just stay out of my personal space.
Okay.
And that immediately had an influence on him. And I'm tapping him in the nose because that's what's he's pushing with first. Some horses push with their hindquarters, some their ribs. He's kind of doing it with everything at different times. There we go. Perfect. And then see, as soon as I give him that leadership, you can see him kind of settle down, because he's just looking for safety. He just wants to feel more comfortable. There we go. And he wants to be really light. You can see that it doesn't take a whole lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, this will be really helpful when you're leading him. Is just, if he gets crowding, just stop and do this. And this will actually teach him to respect a human space. If we just hold him back with the halter, it could stay the same, or it could get worse. It won't get better. The only reason it would get better is if he just gets more relaxed, because he only gets pushy when he gets upset, like emotional.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But if you want to leave a stick kind of outside his stall door to do this leading him, if you want him to get better at it, you know, if you're not too concerned about it and hold him back, a lot of people do that. You know, I like to lead my horse where if I walk slow, I want them to walk slow. If I stop, I want them to stop. If I back up, I want them to back up. So you can see he's kind of getting a little bit more cooperative as we go there. And that's, for me, you know, at my place, I'm thinking of the safety of everybody that's handling the horses. And so I would take the time to do this, because I don't want any risks of somebody getting run over that was trying to hold him back or something. But I also understand your job is mostly to take care of his health-wise.
Right, yeah.
The ball's in your court for training now too. So.
But I also want him to be safe for my staff as well. You know, I want him to be respectful.
I think a few days of this would make a huge difference for him, because you can see him making changes pretty quickly as we go. Why don't you go ahead and come give this one a try? Try not to move your feet. Both sides. Yes. Good. There you go. Good job. There you go. He believed that one. He's like, oh, okay.
Now I got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Now you can see the bigger issue with him is you can see how attached he is to the other horses.
Yeah.
And so I think it's gonna really open up a can of worms with him. And based on his age and the whole training situation here, I think you're better off just picking which order worked for him and letting him get familiar with the routine and just leaving that alone.
Okay.
Because you can see there's another horse in here, but every time a horse leaves, he starts getting bothered.
Yeah.
And that is the underlying problem, you know, here. I would yield the hindquarters quickly there.
For that? Okay.
Yield the hindquarters. Quick. Super. Because that's him getting kind of bothered at another level. It's like, okay, I'm attached to you, but I don't want to be. Yep. Good. So I think overall that'll be the best approach.
Okay.
If it's okay, I'll just work with him just a little bit, and then we'll put him back, and then you can kind of practice this when you'd like. So now I feel like do you see how we lost connection again?
Yeah.
And so it's not the appropriate time to work on space because he's not paying attention to us at all. The best thing we could do now is yield the hindquarters again. Because of how wound up he got just with that other horse leaving the arena. And so that's where like which technique you pick matters, because it was going to be a losing battle trying to just get him out of your space when he's stirred up.
Yeah.
You know, but yielding the hindquarters helps him to decompress a bit. I also feel like we kind of like timed out a little bit. Like he has a very short attention span. He's kind of like playing with a weanling.
Yeah.
Just because he hasn't had a lot of handling. And so if I was like training him for real, I would take him out of his pen a couple times a day for short sessions is what I would do.
Okay.
But that's why I think if you just integrate some of this into your handling him, I think it'll make a big difference. Now, see here, if he goes to pass me in here, I think I would be more inclined to just step around him and do a hindquarter yield as a way to, because this is now stallion thought. Do you hear the change in his whinny?
Yeah.
Instead of being a worried, frantic whinny, it's a deeper, you know. Now I know he's not a stallion anymore, but he still has some of those instincts and hormones.
He still thinks he is.
Yeah, and that's when I keep saying how part of the issue is him being concerned about the herd dynamics. I can now see where the stallion part of it's coming into play. Like stallions are going to be much more concerned about the herd than a gelding would be.
Yeah.
You know, any horse can be, but this is now him, the stallion version of him. Because we just got closer to the other horses and he lost it more. But it's because they were whinnying at him and he's in stallion mode. And that's the mode you don't want to deal with him in.
Yeah, I know.
Because that'll be the most extreme version of him.
Yep.
Yeah, so you got a little project here. What I would focus on with him is a workaround, which means what is the order that you can take him out of the barn and bring the other horses in and out that bothers him the least and do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Figure out what works and
Yep.
do it.
And I think it's going to be more about him, him going with another horse or him, coming back with another or before the other horses leave that pen, something like that. I think that'll be the best system. And I also think part of what you're dealing with is him learning the new system. And so when he gets, like next week, it'll be getting easier just because of that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my 2 cents. I think probably the worst thing that you could do with him is just try to hold him back, leading him. I think the easy thing is to yield the hindquarters and just keep kind of turning him around until he gets a little bit more settled.
Okay.
And then once he is settled and connected with you, practicing proactively. So not waiting for him to get upset to practice while you're leading him, stop and back up. Just asking him to be with you while you're going versus getting drugged to the pen, because it could very easily turn into him dragging everybody to the pen or dragging them back.
Yeah.
Because in here he gets to worry about the other horses and eat, and so he's going to want to get to here, and that's what's going to be challenging.
And just kind of let them settle when they come up. Just let them settle, and don't just right away.
If he gets fired up, let him settle.
Yeah.
And I would also ideally be strategic about when you open the gate, and I would try to have him up with the other ones. Because I felt like when we were out there, it was real close to that going real south if he hadn't figured out how to get around the gate. If he hadn't figured that out, the next level was him spiking adrenaline, and now he would have been a handful. Once they get on adrenaline, they have to burn that in their system. They can't turn it off. It's like when somebody's really emotional and somebody goes, calm down. It's like, I am calm.
Yeah.
It's like, that doesn't work because you can't just flip a switch and turn your emotions off immediately. When you're training, my goal is to, make the wrong thing uncomfortable, make the right thing easy, but I always say not scare them. Because if you scare them, that's when they get on adrenaline, that's when they get very concerned. And now you're just going to teach bad habits in that mindset. There's nothing good that's going to come from them being in that mindset. Yeah.
very concerned about his friend leaving.
Exactly. This is kind of the proof of my point that this is much less about catching him and leading him. He really doesn't really have any issues with that. He has issues with separation anxiety.
Yeah.
And being and then some of it is coming from the stallion in him. Did you hear the whinny though there? To me, it was more frantic, like my safety net just left.
Yeah.
Where when I brought him in here, it was more of a like a stallion at breeding time. And what's troublesome about that is stallions will quickly turn into fight mode. So when he's worried, he's in flight mode, which means yielding the hindquarters will get him to settle. When he's in fight mode, none of it's going to work. It's a fight because he's the stallion instinct to breed is in fight for the herd is the strongest instinct that I know of that they can have. And so when they're in that mode, you really can't accomplish anything. It's about not getting them in that mode. All right. Well, hopefully that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got some tools now and some insight where we kind of went wrong in the situation.
Yeah.
So it's very helpful, not just for him, but really for a lot of different instances. I mean, we're a big boarding facility.
Yeah.
We need a lot of different horses.
A lot of different horses, and
And now we have some more tools.
Awesome.
In our belt. So
good deal.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking me to come out, and I guess keep me posted.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you updates, and if we get into big trouble, I'll be SOS.
All right.
So,
Sounds
but yeah,
good.
I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hopefully.